What's going on, Thrallers? Miller here.
Rin! Necrotic Nick.
Jammin Jon.
Shredlord.
He's so timid.
Maybe because he's excited. We're all excited. Because
I am very
we love
excited.
this band. But it was pretty hard. But this is the ranking, finally, of Cannibal Corpse.
Candlebox.
Yeah.
No, that's the other one.
Oh,
Yeah, we
Left
almost
Behind's
screwed.
a good song.
I had a whole list for Cannabis Corpse written out. And
Cradle
then I
of
got
Candles.
here and I was like, shit. And our journey will take us back to 1985 in a town of Buffalo, home of the chicken wing.
It's blue cheese with wings or go fuck your mother.
It was in this town that three guys by the name of Paul Mazurkowitz, Chris Barnes, and Rich Ziegler decided to start a band, even though they had no idea what the hell they were doing. They started doing covers and air guitar and figured, why not? If they can fake it, they should be able to play it. And eventually they learned how to play it. Shortly thereafter, upon joining and just kind of messing around, they recruited Bob Ruzzi, who wanted to play bass, much to Chris Barnes' objections, but it led to him leading on vocals and kind of creating the death metal sound for vocals, even though it's something that I'm not a big fan of in the genre overall. But respect to him for starting that, and when he first started, everything was fairly clear. Much like Napalm Death, though, before anything even comes out, there's some movement and stuff. There's just a molding of bands, a wish-wash. Chris left Tyrant Sin and went with Leviathan to record their EP, which was a more established band in the area. But meanwhile, Paul, Rich, and Bob decided to continue with recording the demo for Tyrant Sin and did so without Chris Barnes. Chris Barnes then came back and joined the band again while they were touring in the Buffalo area. Another notable band that is in the area is Beyond Death, and also Dark Deception was in the area as well. Those bands will come into play because of the members. So after the Leviathan breakup and Barnes joins back into Tyrant Sin, they do the little touring thing. It was then that Rich left the band, pretty much sealing the fate for Tyrant Sin. But meanwhile, down at Absolute Storage, Beyond Death is going through some problems too, where Alex and Jack are really looking to dial in the death metal sound that they wanted to go through, like Sodom, Creator of Death. And while the other guys wanted to kind of move more into that crossover thrash thing that was going on. So Jack and Alex called up Bob and asked what they were doing since Rich left, and the two bands joined together, which would be the first official lineup of Cannibal Corpse. Featured Paul Mazurkowitz, Chris Barnes, Alex Webster, Jack Owen, and Bob Ruzzi. All of which would later decide on the name Cannibal Corpse after Alex Webster blurted it out in a practice, I think it was, and it just rang. Everyone was like, yeah, the Cannibal Corpse, it's got a ring. Everybody, and that was one of the things about this band is their name, their logo, everything is legible, it makes sense, it rolls off the tongue.
I think there was like a little bit of a discussion as to what a cannibal corpse was like. Is it a zombie?
I was thinking about that in the shower today.
Yeah, cannibalistic corpse, a zombie.
Everyone
Yeah,
knew
a
that
zombie that eats.
as soon as you heard the name, you knew it was metal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And you saw
absolutely.
that logo, metal.
Crazy country band. Cannibal Corpse.
I know, and if it's a zombie eating a zombie, then it's not really that bad because they're both made up things. So what's everyone bitching about?
Recycling?
The trash is taking itself out.
Yeah.
There you go. So throughout 88 and into 89, the band practiced their asses off and they had their first show in 89. And just a year later would be signed to Metal Blade Records, which would actually be the first death metal band on that record label. At that point, they were seeking a studio to record their first full length. And at that time in Florida, Morris Sound was creating a buzz because of all the stellar albums that were coming out with that, the Sepulturas, the Obituaries. So they went down to Florida and recorded Eaten Back to Life in 1990. And this was my number 8. The intro to Shredded Humans is one of the most iconic intros of any album. I mean, right up there with like Arise and stuff like that. You know it right off the bat. I love the thrashy feel of the album. It's very early death metal, their established sound, but I like this thrashier feel to it. I like thrashy Cannibal Corpse, the groove Cannibal Corpse, so especially songs like Scattered Remains, Born in a Casket, of course, Skull Full of Maggots, which is a staple song of theirs and has been ever since they I think it was even Bob that created that riff for that So ever since that in 1988, 87, when he did that, that song still sticks with me and it still makes my playlist. But this album overall was number 8 for me. Would you have it at, Nick?
It's also number 8. I love this album. This is the first Cannibal Corpse album I ever bought. I bought it mainly because I saw them in Ace Ventura. I didn't buy the right album, but I bought it just because this has got a big, scary monster on it. He's eating himself, and that was pretty much it. And I jammed this nonstop. Skull Full of Maggots, of course, is a staple. Born in a Casket and Mangled. 2 of my absolute favorite songs. Same thing, I love the thrashier feel. This album kind of stands out for that reason. It has like almost kind of a 50-50 feel in terms of like thrash riffs to like the death metal stuff. Barnes wasn't quite that low yet, but this album's pure fun and one hell of a start for this band. And granted, the sound would change slightly over the years, but this one stands out and it's killer.
Yeah, I also had it at number 8. First off, not bad on production for 1990, 89, 90, somewhere in there. Not bad on production at all. And again, the thrashy feel to it is cool too. Now that's also why it is number 8. Edible Autopsy, Mangled, Scattered Remains and Splattered Brains, Born in a Casket, A Skull Full of Maggots.
How do you not love these songs?
Come on.
Ass?
Come on.
It's like every album.
Come on.
You're like looking at all the songs like
Yes, that's funny.
listing off my favorites.
I had to stop myself writing it. It just turned into me writing the entire track listing.
Yeah.
Just like I like it because of all the songs. So yeah.
Yeah.
8.
Rin.
Number 10. I like it. It is a glimpse of what they were going to move into. Skull Full of Maggots. Shredded humans on a tortilla with a little pico. Delicious.
No cilantro.
No cilantro. Yeah.
I like some.
All the cilantro. Eaten Back to Life was my number 7. I liked it just a little bit more than you guys. This was a really good debut. There's no bass in the mix.
Nah.
And there's no excuse for it because, I believe Altars was already out and we could hear the bass in that. So there's no excuse for that. Alex Webster is like god tier bass player. If you know anything about Cannibal Corpse, you know that. So it's kind of a sin. But this is the blueprint for what they are going to do. They might make the most minute of changes, and I mean minute, but this is the blueprint of what's going to be the heart and soul eventually of the Cannibal Corpse sound. Maybe more so on the next record, but this is where it all began. This is the ascension, the beginning. So yeah, number 7, solid album. A little raw, not as technical as it's going to be, but still really good.
And the band just started their touring assault really in the Buffalo area, of course, because they were just getting started out. Played as many shows as they could, wherever they could drive to, pretty much. And it led to them doing their second full-length album in July 1st, 1991, which would be Butchered at Birth. I had that at number 12 on my list. Same lineup. It's going to be the same lineup for the first couple albums here. Glenn Benton actually did some backing vocals on
the soul.
We're going to see him tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm missing that one, unfortunately. But yeah, Glenn Benton is killer. Obviously, Deicide is one of my favorite fucking bands ever. The intro to this, I don't care for it. It's a little too drawn out for me. I don't mind drawn out intros if they lead. I don't know. I just don't like this. I wanted to get Cannibal Corpse off the bat and not this really long drawn out thing. Covered with Sores, Grooves. I love that song. It's one of my favorites on the album, of course. It's with probably anyone that likes Cannibal Corpse. That song rips. I don't know why you wouldn't like that song, but I still had it at 12. Pretty low.
I've never been covered in sores.
I have, and it is not fun.
Oh yeah.
They make ointments, sads.
Butchered at Birth, I like a little bit more than Eaten Back to Life. To me, this was a progression from the first in terms of songwriting. I think the songwriting got a little bit better. However, I think the production took a step back. I didn't really care for it at all, and I think it doesn't do it as justice. It doesn't feel as brutal to me, but once again, songs like Covered with Sores, Meat Hook Sodomy, Rancid Amputation, stuff like that are just killer-ass Cannibal Corpse songs, and this album seems to be a little more death metal. Gone is the thrash now, and in his full-board death metal, and yeah, I think number 6 is a damn fine ranking.
Rin.
Number 8. A little bit better than Eaten Back to Life. Everybody likes Meat Hook Sodomy. It's fun.
Involve the whole family.
Yep.
Covered in sores, not so much fun. Vomit the soul. Sometimes you gotta get it out. It's
Yeah,
good
that's
stuff.
true.
Good stuff for you.
You wake up feeling better that way.
And Dead Babies on the album.
I remember my mom discovering that album in my collection. It was like, what the hell is wrong with you? I was like, would you like me to make a list or...
Yeah, this
I can
would-
make a list.
This would start their just the different countries banning their albums, and then later into the next album, they have to create alternate covers for things, and
More work for Vincent Locke.
which is fine because I love his art.
I had this number 13, and all right, I do love all these albums, but this one going back, the production is kind of an issue, but I like the fact that it is a hard push to death metal, like all the thrashy elements are going. I think it is a way more brutal album, but I don't know, like the production and the fact that a little bit of the nuance is kind of gone with all those thrashy riffs, like a little bit of the melodies are gone, but there's still some damn good songs here. The title track is absolutely amazing. Under the Rotted Flesh, dude, that is a pure chug-a-thon. And Vomit the Soul is one of my favorite Cannibal Corpse songs because I got Glenn Benton too, and he's just puking his guts up along with Barnes, which Barnes turned into a big scary monster in this album because he dropped his vocals down notably lower. And honestly, I think this is where people really looked at him as like kind of the pioneer of the real guttural vocals.
I mean, it's probably one of his better performances. I had this at number 15, and my argument is solely the production. It's tough to make it through almost. They're great songs, but the production is just kind of a big old sack of butts. I do like it though because it is a push into death metal. Like, this is Cannibal Corpse in their true form. This is where they really started going for death metal. Meat Hook Sodomy has such an awesome groove in it. Gutted, Under the Rotted Flesh, Covered with Sores. Even the title track of this album is killer.
Oh yeah, Innards Decay
But
too.
it would be higher on the list if it didn't sound like a Muppet running through a trash compactor. It's
rough.
It's rough.
I mean, I think maybe it was just the approach with Barnes. Like, okay, you want to kind of push up everything brutal here. Like, it's already difficult because there's not a lot of room to mix. So this is gonna be tough. But even the remaster doesn't sound that great, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, some sacrifices were made. But honestly, the forward push, that was what mattered, because this is true blue death metal.
And push they did into the fall in Europe with their first European tour. It was then that the band realized, hey, we can make a few bucks doing this. And they came back. They all pretty much quit their day jobs and did this, and started their North American tour with Gore Guts. And not even a shitty trailer hitch on the GWB would stop these guys from pursuing on to their first show on this tour in Toronto, making their mark on the metal world pretty much forever, and still to this day. This would all lead up into September 22nd of 92 in Tomb of the Mutilated. And this I had at number 5. This is one of my favorites, obviously number 5. They kept the same lineup. Scott Burns returns to do this stuff.
And did a much better job.
Yeah, this one is the production is really well. And this is when he was kind of hitting his stride, I think. This was the first album, too, they had to create alternate covers. So the label was like, okay, we gotta do some alternates here, so we're not banned in Germany and Australia.
Which is fucked up, because they like, oh, the dead baby's on meat hooks, that's fine. Like, wait, hold on, is that corpse eating out that other corpse? Hold on, I have an awkward boner now. This has to be wrong.
Yeah.
Cannibal Cunnilingus.
Yeah.
But it was songs like the obvious ones, Hammer Smash Face, I Come Blood. They really went out for the song titles and really went out for the writing. They took their time. Their skill level was going through the roof at this point, and everything was tight on this album, and I really, really enjoyed this album. Still to this day, I listen to it regularly.
I had it at number 3. I really love this album. Production gets better, the songs get more brutal. Of course, Hammer Smashed Face, I feel like that's the Cannibal Corpse song that everybody knows. I Come Blood, it's a great song. I don't actually come blood, I haven't, that's not. Addicted to Vaginal Skin.
We're not into any of that.
Yeah, not at all.
Disclaimer. Well,
even the band has had a disclaimer, like, it's all just fictional stories, much like a horror movie, you know? And you're gonna go to a movie theater and watch some guy slaughter a bunch of teenagers, but you can't listen to it?
I also had this number 3. This is fucking amazing. This is like one of my favorite Cannibal Corpse albums. Dude, the riffs got tighter on this. There are way more hooks. You have standout songs, of course, Hammer Smash Face. If you hear the intro to that song, you should be moshing by the time the blast comes in. Beyond the Cemetery, also a really awesome, underrated cut on this. This is, I think, where this lineup kind of got it all together. Jack Owen and Alex Webster are really showing off the fact that they were very proficient musicians.
And they work so well together.
Yeah.
They were showing off the
want.
fact that they were Alex Webster and Jack Owen.
And you could hear improvement in pretty much everyone. Like Barnes' voice is really prominent in this.
Yep.
The mix, Scott Burns did a much better job. It's a fantastic album. This is a stone cold death metal classic.
I have it at number 5. It's the Cannibal Corpse. Hammer Smash Faced everything they said. I come blood just once, it went away. Everything's fine now. Healthy as a bull. Yep.
Shredlord.
This is my number 3. I love this album. To me, it is a classic. This is a perfect example of third time's a charm. They really hit a home run on this album on all fronts.
With a hammer.
With a hammer to the face. And there's just excellent, what I thought was the best, but it wasn't the best. Not yet, but damn, it's close. So, number 3, excellent listen.
It was during the recording of this album, Bob was kind of disheartened at the fact that they had Jack redo his tracks, and then there was an EP that they had there where he did some solos for it, and then Jack came in and re-recorded the solos. So it's at that point then he was like, what
am I even doing here?
Yeah. Which I don't blame him, but if you're in a band like Cannibal Corpse that's just on a rampage, your chops have to come up, and they just didn't.
Bob had the energy. It was just his playing was sloppier. Jack was the better player, and he got the riffs out clear. But in terms of live stuff, like Bob was on it.
But at that point, they were faced going on tour, and they didn't have a guitarist at all. So this is where the first major lineup change come. When they replaced him with Rob Barrett. Originally, Alex had contacted Rob from Solstice, a Malevolent Creation, about just covering the tour that they had established there and just filling those dates. And then when they came back from that, they were going to reconvene and see what they had to do in terms of long-term replacement. But they ended up keeping him and hanging on to him for a while here, at least for the next couple albums. And in this point here is when they did the Ace Ventura, the iconic scene in the movie Ace Ventura, which I think originally Jim Carrey, this is all over the place, but I think originally he was looking for Napalm Death, but they didn't want to do it. And then they contacted Cannibal Corpse, and it is still up in the air on how hardcore of a death metal fan he is. But still, badass that the genre was represented in a film that did so commercially well.
Yeah.
They didn't know that this film would do well. But it came out, and it's obviously a classic now.
I didn't know what death metal was until that moment.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And all this would lead up into April 12th of 1994 when The Bleeding came out. And I had this at number 4. Like I said, the first major change came up, and so it was Paul Mazurkiewicz, Alex Webster, Chris Barnes, Jack Owen, and Rob Barrett. And they would put together one of the best death metal albums ever made in my eyes. I love this album, even though it's number 4 for me. They took their time to deliver they focused on arrangement, composition. They brought back these iconic riffing that they had before, and they kind of lost a little bit. Just those riffs that stand out, that you can hum and that and that is missing from a lot of music nowadays. Dripped and Strangled, I'll leave out for sake of YouTube. But one of my favorite songs,
Stripped,
The Bleeding. She was asking for it. They're killer songs on there. The whole album, again, going back to just listing the tracks on all of them, and this is one of those albums that I found myself doing that, and I just stopped. I was like, okay, it's just the whole album is kick-ass. I love this album. But John, where'd you have this one?
I had it at number 7. It's funny you should say that because I wrote in my notes, should I just name all these goddamn songs? I hate this. I know I say this every ranking, but this was extremely hard because this band is grossly consistent.
He just has a fear of making a decision, folks.
Staring Through the Eyes of the Dead, with a knife, stripped, raped, and strangled, pulverized, the pickaxe murder, she was asking for it, force fed broken glass. Again, I feel like I'm just naming off every song on the album, but all these songs whoop ass.
Other than more, it's number 1. This is essentially Cannibal Corpse greatest hits. If you threw Hammer Smash Face on it, it probably would be Cannibal Corpse greatest hits. I like the fact that the focus was on songwriting as well as brutality here because these songs stand out. You know, that's kind of an issue with Cannibal Corpse is sometimes they just bullet train aggression. They still delivered on all the aggression, but the songs were different. Like Return to Flesh, a slow, groovy song with just killer, dark melodies all over it. Pulverized literally does that to your eardrums. And of course, Stripped, Raped, and Strangled, that is one of the most iconic openings next to Hammer Smash Face. This album is brilliant. I think it's an absolute essential in death metal, and they stepped up to the plate. They had a benchmark album right before this. They attempted to beat it, and I think they did. And they made it somewhat accessible. Like, this is possibly one of the more accessible albums they put out just because there's a little bit more groove, and again, riffs, melodies, not pretty ones, death metal ones.
I would say at that point
yeah.
it was the most accessible, yeah.
But yeah, it's a brilliant album, and you should own it if you love death metal. It should be in your collection. Go check.
This is my number 4. I was familiar with Cannibal Corpse before this, but this is when I really figured out who they were. The older, scarier headbangers listened to Corpse, and they were scary. I don't want to talk to them.
They always had their hair down in their
They
face.
smelled like Marlboros and poverty. It wasn't until I saw Staring Through the Eyes of the Dead video on Headbangers Ball. I said, oh, yes. And then I bought it. And you should too. Top 5 death metal albums all time. It's up there.
Yeah.
But it's their number 4 for me. I don't know.
I agree with Necrotic. This is my number 1, clear and away. I think this is absolutely a greatest hits of Cannibal Corpse. The 4th time was actually the charm. It ended up being the 4th time. I know I give Chris Barnes a lot of shit, as we all do, but
Chris Barnes.
But this might be my favorite vocal performance out of all 4, and I think he killed it. And I definitely agree that being that it had a little bit more groove and a little bit more melody, it did make it much more accessible. And not that it was a bad thing at all, because at least it was a little variety. Because as we go through the Corpse discography, you see sometimes from album to album there really is no variety there. And so at least this one stands out to me as something that is a little bit of a different gem in the collection, so to speak.
It was then after the release of that album that the band started thinking about maybe moving down to Florida because they kept shipping down there every 2 years, 3 years to do an album, and
it's warmer.
Buffalo's cold.
Yeah, it's
Buffalo's
warmer down
cold.
in Florida than it is in Buffalo.
That's why you eat hot wings.
Yeah.
Gotta warm up somehow.
Shit blood.
Gators and hurricanes, though. I don't know.
And meth.
And meth.
A lot of meth.
But it was in the preparation stages of the next album where the biggest lineup change came because of a cross between Paul and Alex and Chris in basically the direction that Chris was going with the lyrics in terms of his patterns he was using, the lyrics he was writing. They wanted to collaborate a little bit more and have some input on some of that. And Chris was kind of reluctant, and he started doing a 6 Feet Under thing, so he was kind of doing something else. And it just at that point, the band felt that he wasn't into it 100%. So they started maybe entertaining the idea of finding a different vocalist, which was at the time crazy because Chris Barnes is Chris Barnes, and they had this established sound that coming off the Bleeding, which is one of the best albums to come out. And the label wasn't happy about it, of course, but they got George Fisher from Monstrosity, and he would become the death metal vocalist of all death metal vocalists to be death metal vocalists. But at the time, the label was scared, and rightfully so. They should have been. They had a good thing going, and then they're switching it up like that. But enter Vile, which was Scott Burns' last album he did with Cannibal Corpse, and one of the last albums he did, period. He was just becoming... he just didn't want to be pigeonholed anymore and be the death metal guy, and he had been doing it for so long. He just kind of lost it. This was the first time they tuned down, which correlates to the first time they hit the Billboard 200. So maybe a correlation? I don't know. A lot of new metal bands may say so.
Debuted at 151.
I had it at number 15. It lost a little bit of that groove for me, and they really were honing in on speed, death, really honed in on that, and that's not my favorite Cannibal Corpse stuff. Yeah, I like it when it's good and those iconic riffs happen, and then they go into the heavier stuff, but it just seemed like it was just too focused on that and not arrangement and memorable riffs. There weren't really too many that stood out in terms of holding in my memory. Like if I'm thinking of Cannibal Corpse and I can rattle off some tunes or hum them or whatever, none of them will be on vinyl. But going back, I listened to it. There are songs that I know and I love, but they're not ones that I go to immediately.
Yeah.
And that's probably why I had it at 15. You know, there was just tensions and it was a weird transition period, and it kind of showed for me.
I had this at number 12. To me, this was a letdown on a few fronts. Considering how good George Fisher is, and considering how good The Bleeding was, you know, I think you had high expectations for this album, but I believe that they were so focused on being death metal at this point, and they were so focused on aggression, that songwriting kind of took a back seat to aggression and speed on this, and so it leads to just a very meh kind of their album for me, with only a couple songs, Orgasm Through Torture and then Monolith. Those are really the only ones that I can say on this album that even catch my ear, so to speak.
I had it at number 12 as well. I guess kind of to piggyback off what Shred said here. Actually, everybody said so far. The songs are kind of lackluster. There wasn't a whole lot going on, although I do like the song Bloodlands and Absolute Hatred and Devoured by Vermin. Like Miller said, it's not something I would go to. They're not songs I would pull out of thin air if someone asked, hey, what's Cannibal Corpse sound like? I would not play something off this album. And I thought the mix was pretty thin on this too. You know, you could tell Burns was on his way out because it sounds like it.
Yeah, and even at one point during this, I think he walked out completely and said, mix your own goddamn album.
Yep.
So,
A little tense.
This is definitely not one of my favorites. Still good, just not one of my favorites by any means. Number 12.
Well, it's number 15 for me. It's last place. I still like stuff on this. I mean, I like all these albums, but this one, the only thing it is heavy. I mean, that's cool. Like the down-tuned guitars would do better later on when they were mixed better, because a lot of time when they're just doing the super fast chugging, it just kind of blends into mud. Corpse Grinder does a good job.
Yes.
Like right away, he establishes his presence. That first scream on Devoured by Vermin, that sets it off. Like, oh wow, this guy has a totally different voice. His vocal patterns are different. But the music behind it, just, again, it feels heavy and uninspired. Like, you take all the stuff that was written on The Bleeding with all the different movements and harmonies, melodies, but it all stayed heavy and gritty. Again, this just kind of just stayed fast and heavy, except for a few tracks. Like, I do like Eden from the Inside. Of course, Monolith, we're probably going to bring up that one. Disfigured, I think, is pretty solid. But, again, this isn't one I would play for, like, people say, oh, tell me about Cannibal Corpse. I would probably play them stuff off The Bleeding first. But it's still a good album. It's just someone had to be last, and it was this one.
I have it second to last. Not as poopy, but poopy. Ish. Poopy-ish?
Poopy-ish.
Poopish.
Poopy.
It's very poopish.
Yeah, all of that, what they said. It's fast, muddy, yet thin.
Yeah, right? Muddy and thin.
How do you do muddy and thin?
That's an accomplishment.
Yeah.
Dust? Maybe it would be dust?
It could be.
Soot?
It's a dry heat.
Silty.
Silt.
There you go.
Yeah, Devoured by Vermin, though. Orgasm Through Torture, yeah.
Yes, please.
May have paved the way for 50 Shades.
Yeah, it was our introduction to Corpse Grinder, which, with all change, I hated him because he wasn't Chris. But
I like the other long-haired guy.
I like the other guy. And his neck was only like 38 inches around.
Yeah.
It would grow
Substantially.
Yes.
throughout the years.
Thanks to HGH.
Every 3 years, 43 more inches wide. It's 215,000 feet long now. But yeah, 14. Yeah, I get it.
Another kind of change happened. They had differences with Rob in the band now in terms of the direction on the where they were going, because like we said in this album, it's very much focused on that death metal sound and honing in on the fast speed stuff. And Rob wasn't feeling it too much, so they decided to part ways. Then on the recommendation from their sound guy, they reached out to Pat O'Brien, who was from Nevermore, and switched over to Monstrosity for a little bit, and then they stole Pat from Monstrosity, much like George.
We're sorry, Monstrosity. You get
and
bad-
They are
bad
probably
luck.
pissed.
Yeah. They're just like in that documentary, The Breeding Ground for people. If you did really well in Monstrosity, maybe you'll get into a real band, which is kind of shitty.
Monstrosity is awesome.
Yes. But enter April 21st, 1998 in Gallery of Suicide, which is George Fisher, Alex Webster, Paul Mazurkiewicz, Jack Owen, and Pat O'Brien. Jim Morris produced this. They went back to Morris Sound. I had Gallery of Suicide at number 10. Sentenced to Burn is probably one of the top 10 Cannibal Corpse songs for me. I love that jam. It's on my hard and heavy playlist. It's probably like 20 songs from Cannibal Corpse on it. Another song that really stands out is Every Bone Broken. Again, it's kind of like Vile though. It's those two songs stand out to me, but then not a lot else. So they were really dialed into that death metal speak thing at this point. This is a better attempt than Vile, but still 10 just because 10. And you got to put a number on them.
You do. I have this at number 11. I think it's better than Vile. There's some songs here I think they're a little bit different. I think a lot of that is due to Pat's playing and what he contributed. From Skin to Liquid, the first instrumental they ever did, and it's awesome. There's some slower, doomier songs on here that I really enjoyed. And like Sentence to Burn, of course, Headless, the guitar work on that song is furious. And again, I think Pat was able to work well with Jack Owen on this and actually craft some more standout songs, because there are some songs that stand out more than a lot of stuff on Vile.
And they're both very technical guitars.
Yes.
Very solid guitars, very clean.
And the title track I think is especially different because there's dissonant guitars and there's more atmosphere, and honestly Cannibal Corpse isn't really known for atmosphere.
No.
So hearing some different elements in there is kind of cool, but there's a lot of other stuff that I think is better, so 11.
I got it at 12. It is better than Vile. The production is a little bit better. Still a little too much, but they do bring it down Liquid to Skin to Liquid. That's the instrumental, right?
It's awesome.
That's what George said. He's like, I'm not gonna sing.
That's too good.
I'm gonna go do neck lifts.
I'm gonna headbutt this building to the ground.
If you listen really close on the recording, you can hear
That's his
Yeah,
hair.
the hair,
Well,
yeah.
they get hot while they're tracking, so he fans them.
Yeah.
Gallery, the title track, Sentence to Burn. It's good. It's not, but there's other albums that are better.
Yeah.
I disagree with these guys. I think this is a slight step down from Vile, which is why I placed it at number 13. They kind of continued on the same path of Vile, stayed violent, but aside the title track and Stabbed in the Throat, this album was just kind of meh for me.
When I went over this in order, when I first listened to it, I kind of felt that way too. It wasn't until the second, third time I went through and really listened to it again. I was like, yeah, it kind of grew on me a little more.
This was a kind of a fucked up period for death metal too.
Oh,
98, yeah. Even 96 when Vile came out, I mean, this is where nu metal started taking over, and it wasn't cool to like death metal. The groove metal thing had also taken over. So, yeah, I mean, props to them for sticking to it. They didn't write some bullshit nu metal album or groove metal album.
They should have got a DJ.
No, don't you, that's blasphemy.
Cannibal. Cannibal.
Scut, skull full of maggots. All that didn't happen, and we're thankful.
Come blood, come blood.
I had this at number 11. Again, I also liked it a little bit more than Vile, but to me there still wasn't a whole hell of a lot going on. And of course, I did like other albums better, that's why it's down at 11. Pat O'Brien, though, really brought the thunder. I do like the opening track, I Will Kill You. That just seems like an incredible way to open an album. First of all,
Pretty straightforward.
pretty straightforward and heavy, and they're gonna kill you.
How? Doesn't matter.
The title track is pretty badass.
Yes.
And then, of course, From Skin to Liquid, Actually, I got reminded of Gojira early on in that song, and then it of course, comes out of it. But it really, in the beginning, it reminded me of Gojira.
The better production helped that down-tuned guitar too. It actually worked better.
Yep.
From Skin to Sirius.
Yes, from Skin to Sirius. Yeah, Chambers of Blood, Centuries of Torment. I mean, it's still a great album. Because Cannibal Corpse whoops ass.
October 19th, 1999 would bring the world their 7th full-length album, Bloodthirst, which I ranked at number 14. George, Alex, Paul, Pat, Jack, they all came back to do this album, and it was for the first time produced by the legend Colin Richardson. Did Carcass, Slipknot, Machine Head, Creator. He's done everything.
Yeah.
It's just a huge
Everything.
list.
Yep.
Again, too much to list. This one I just didn't, I don't know, I didn't care for it as much as all the other ones, and again, there wasn't anything that stood out to me on this album. The guitars didn't have a lot of body to them, I thought. I just thought it could have been beefier a little bit with the guitars. Now maybe I gotta listen to it more again for the fucking 6th time or whatever, but it just was 14. It just wasn't as memorable as some of the other stuff for me.
In contrast, this was my number 1. This was one of the first Cannibal Corpse albums I ever heard. Come on, Spine Splitter. I think that ascending crawling riff. Man, what a song! Pounded into Dust, Unleashing the Bloodthirsty. With that chorus, they
that
live,
chorus.
they die. See, I thought this record had beef to it and punch, and it was just fucking brutal.
Made me punch my beef.
Yep. To this day, I love this album. I love every song on it. It's killer.
Yeah.
It is my three. Yeah. This is, Chris Barnes. Corpse Grinder. This is like, he's the new guy. And there's no. I want to wrap my arms around the tree trunk of his head.
Yep.
I don't want to. But Unleashing the Bloodthirsty, weep, the freaking riff in Spine Splitter. I can't take it anymore.
Yep.
I can't. It's so yummy. Delicious. Blowtorch Slaughter. Yeah. This is, maybe it's number 1.
I don't know, maybe
It could be 2.
should have ranked it higher.
It's 3.
I think it's good. It's not my favorite, and it's certainly not my least favorite, though. I had it at number 8. I thought this was a big improvement as far as production was concerned, and although they did not reinvent the wheel on this album, I thought the formula was exactly right. This is a kick-ass Cannibal Corpse album, and it is brutal, and I enjoy the shit out of it.
I had it at number 7. Corpse Grinder came alive.
Yes, he did.
On this one.
Yes, he did.
His cadences are even more aggressive. If you're not ready to mosh by the beginning of Unleashing the Bloodthirsty, you will die if you were in that pit. So yeah, get loose. Ecstasy and Decay, the Spine Splitter, we're gonna gush about that one. This is a no bullshit album. It's one of their shorter albums too, but it is just packed with so much aggression you almost can't take it. Colin's mix on here is fantastic. Everything is nice and well balanced. It just feels so fucking filthy. Love this album. The only reason why it's at 7 is because there's just some other stuff I like a little bit more, but I love this album. It's direct. It's just multiple punches to the face. There's no bullshit. Get it.
And enter February 25th, 2002's release of Gore Obsessed with the same lineup that they've been going, but this time they went to the Sonic Ranch, not with Scott Burns this time, but they went with Neil Kernan, who has done everyone from... His discography is crazy. Everyone from Neil Diamond to Judas Priest to Kansas to Nile.
Hall & Oates.
Hall & Oates,
I'm bringing
he
up
did
Hall & Oates in a Cannibal Corpse ranking. Thanks, Neil.
Yeah.
I like their version
Skinless,
of Fight with a Knife.
exhumed.
Man-Eater takes a whole new swing when you give it to Cannibal Corpse.
But yeah, I had number 11. Again, it's just... I still like this album. Pit of Zombies. I love that song. That's definitely on my list of songs that are regularly shuffled on my phone. But yeah, number 11 is just because it's number 11, I guess. I'm into that middle. In the middle, it's like
They're the numbers.
Right.
yeah, they're numbers.
It's 11 for me too. Same thing. I don't know why. There were better. There were worse.
And there was 11.
There was a hatchet to the head though.
Yeah,
When death replaces life.
there we go.
Dude,
pit of zombies. But I don't know, Bloodthirst was so good.
Yeah.
yeah, right?
If there was no Bloodthirst, it would be higher because there'd be less albums.
Yeah.
Also,
I had it at 12, so pretty much in the same range. Like, it's a good album, but it's up against some steep competition. And while there are some standouts, you know, of course, When Death Replaces Life, Hung and Bled, Compelled to Lacerate.
Yes.
There's good songs on here, but it's just kind of like a their album, and it's sandwiched between a lot of other good albums, too. The production is good. It's a little bit more polished. But, I mean, you can hear all the horrible things that Corpse Grinder is telling you about, all the things he's threatening you with. I don't hate it. It's just kind of there. And, I mean, I think maybe if I go back and listen to it more, it might be higher, it might be lower. I don't know. It's just one of those albums.
I had it at number 13. Kind of like these guys said, it's just there. Of course, Compelled to Lacerate. I think Compelled to Lacerate could have been on Bloodthirst, to be honest. It's got the same heft as everything else on that album does.
Milk.
The midpoint of Hatchet to the Head is nasty. Of course, Hung and Bled, Drowning in Viscera. But I mean, overall, it's just, like they said, it's sandwiched in between a bunch of really good stuff. And what do? It's a good album. I like things more.
Yeah.
This is where I'm going to separate myself from the pack. This is my least favorite Cannibal Corpse album. This ends up as my number 15. Sorry, I'm going to say it. This might be the most boring Cannibal Corpse album to me. I don't expect them to reinvent the wheel every time, but this totally felt rehashed. And once again, considering all the other albums in their collection, this really nothing that makes it stand out from the rest to me. So if I never heard this album again, it wouldn't bother me a bit.
Although the album is good, I thought the songs were kind of repetitive in their structure, too.
They were trying for, like, more hooks.
Yeah.
But they kind of missed them.
Yep, they kind of missed the mark on that and just ended up being, you know, first chorus done. First chorus breakdown done. Like, okay.
Not terrible, but, again, steep competition.
And a year after Gore Obsessed, they released a small EP, Worm Infested, which wouldn't make our ranking because it's an EP and rules are rules.
however, their cover of No Remorse.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Fucking killer.
Yeah.
I like that cover.
Yeah.
That would then lead into one of my favorite albums all time, The Wretched Spawn. And I had this at number 2. It was Neil returning for the producing and everything. And
Returning.
was
Returning.
I thought it was just killer sounding. Every song on here rips. Frantic Disembowelment's one of my favorites. I mean, there's a ton. Decency Defined. Festering,
Defined.
Nothing Left to
Yep.
Mutilate. It's one of their albums that you just go and start listing every damn song. And you're like, I can't do this. I got to pick my couple favorites. But a lot of them are on this album. A lot of my favorites are on this album, which is why I have it at number 2. I love this album. It's regularly played, for sure. Nick, where did you have this?
A little bit lower. This is number 9. I like this album, much like I like all of their albums. The production, I think, was too clean for as aggressive as it is, because this has some of the most, technical riffs to this point and some of the most aggressive ones. Again, Frantic Disembowelment. Those riffs are fucking insane. But, the cleaner stuff on there, like in terms of the mix, I don't know, it kind of bothered me. And again, it's aggressive. It has a little bit more nuance. But again, there's stuff I like a little bit more. But there's some really good songs in here. The title track's awesome. Nothing Left to Mutilate.
Yes.
I can't believe they mutilated everything by now. It's just ridiculous.
Nothing left.
And
Except for the neck.
yeah, well, you can't mutilate. There's one neck that will stand among all of them as the Lord.
Iron Neck.
And They Deserve to Die. Great songs, but I just like other albums a bit more. Again, difficult to rank, but yeah, this one kind of fell a little bit.
I had this one at number 10. I like this album. To me, this album was a big improvement over Gore Obsessed. Songs like Decency Defiled, Slain, and Nothing Left to Mutilate gave me some hope that there was a little bit of care again and a little bit of thought going into the songs, and I thought this was a good album.
I also had it at number 2. It was between this and Bloodthirst, for sure, all day. Wretched Spawn has always been one of my favorite albums of all time. As far as Cannibal Corpse is concerned, Decency Defined, Frantic Disembowelment, the Wretched Spawn, the title track on this, has one of my favorite Cannibal Corpse drum beats during the verse. Festering in the Crypt is super dark and super heavy. Blunt Force Castration.
That song is badass.
Yep.
Alley.
I've always liked the tone of this record and the brutality and the energy of it. Decency Defined gets stuck in my head all the time.
Yeah.
It's a catchy
Yeah.
song.
Yep. I'm probably gonna jam it on the way home. This is also the last album cover to have like actual gory art with it until Torture.
Yeah.
So-
took a little break.
Yep.
This one definitely pushed it pretty damn hard.
It sure did.
She's having a great time. Mazel tov. It's a
It's
thing.
something. Well, yeah, this is my number 2. This fucking killer record.
After much deliberation, yeah, it's 1. It's my number 1 or 2.
It's
I wrote 1, so it's my 1. The title track.
That sounds fun.
And then that riff that follows, it's just chaos.
yeah.
It's got groove, speed, technical, chuggy. Yeah, this is it. This is the Cannibal Corpse. I judge other Cannibal Corpses. Too.
Yeah.
This feels like a Pat album. Like Pat was just like, no, I'm pushing the heavy, and it's gonna get insane when it comes on the riff.
But not just all.
yeah,
And dude, Corpse Grinder's vocals on
Yeah.
this are nasty.
Jesus.
Nasty.
It was during the time of the Wretched Spawn, though, that Jack was becoming a little more distant in the band. They noticed him just kind of doing his own thing, and it seemed as though he wasn't as committed to being in Cannibal Corpse as the band would like. So they ended up parting ways. Jack ended up going to Deicide, which
I mean,
Stench of Redemption.
Yeah.
Jesus
yeah,
Christ.
right,
Yeah.
right.
And obviously he's doing phenomenally well for himself, and we're glad that he went and evolved, and it wouldn't have led up to some of the other changes that happened. So, but they were left 3 weeks to tour and no guitarist. So this was when the band reached out to their buddy Eric Rutan, and he recommended
mastermind motherfucker.
Yes, indeed.
But he referred them to Jeremy Turner from Origin to fill out the tour dates that they had, and he did very successfully. Toured with them for a while. When they came back from the tours, though, he was pretty much said Jeremy really wanted to be in the band, but then Rob was having second thoughts on the fact that he left Cannibal Corpse and stuff, and to him he was wanting to go to that groovier kind of thing, and they were like, no, we need to go death metal, but they ended up sliding into that anyway, so it made sense to me anyway that Rob would come back into the band, and of course they made sure that the differences were settled and nothing was wrong and stuff, but I'm certainly glad he came back because I think he added a ton to the band, which then takes us to Kill, which was released on my birthday in 2006, and this was a killer birthday present because this was is my favorite Cannibal Corpse album. I had this at number 1. It's the first album that was produced by Eric Rutan and Mana Recording down in Florida, and they tuned down a little bit more on this from where they were before, and it was the second time, coincidentally, that they reached the Billboard 200.
G standard, right?
G sharp, yeah. They tuned down to G sharp. So, and like I said, coincidentally enough, the second time they down-tuned is when they reached the Billboard 200. They did videos for Death Walking Terror, which were very popular, and then this was around the time when YouTube was really going, and Metal Blade started putting up videos, and which pushed them a little bit because their video for Frantic Disembowelment from the last album kind of went viral just because of the way that riff is and watching them play it in the studio. So this was what, they kind of got their foothold going into the whole internet world. At this point, Eric Rutan had backing vocals on Time to Kill Is Now. This whole album is just chock full of everything I like about Cannibal Corpse. Time to Kill, Make Them Suffer, Death Walking Terror. Every song on here I like. I bought this as one of the first vinyls that I was looking for and found at a reasonable price because I'm a cheap bastard, thank God. But I listened to that and probably the Wretched Spawn the most up until the newest album, of course. But Kill, I always go back to this.
This is number 2 for me. This is my favorite Corpse Grinder album. Jesus Christ, this is so fucking aggressive. Like, somehow they managed to be heavier than everything previous, I think, on this album. It's just this gasoline-soaked mix that Eric Rutan just lit on fire, like, go play. It's so damn heavy, but it's riffy, too. Like, it's catchy as hell. Murder Worship. Murder Worship is one of my favorite Cannibal Corpse songs. Death Walking Terror, 5 Nails Through the Neck.
5 Nails Through the Neck is sick.
They even threw in another instrumental, Infinite Misery, and it's sick. It's kind of doomy and nasty. This album, I don't know, it felt like a young, fresh band. Like, they were just like, no, we had to recapture all the aggression we had and then more aggression on top of it. And what you get is kill, and it is sick, and yeah, it's my favorite Corpse Grinder era.
Yeah. This is my number 4. I think there's more groove on this album than there is in most of their other stuff. This is pretty much just a straightforward punch in the balls, I think, which is why I like this album so much. Just hefty as all get out. Bringing back another scrotum smashing instrumental.
A lot of ball pain here.
A lot of ball pain.
Barbaric bludgeonings. Of course, make them suffer. Do the breakdown in Murder Worship.
Yeah. Dude, those triplets.
Yep, and I agree that this is probably one of Corpse Grinder's shining gems as far as this whole discography is concerned. The record is so goddamn heavy.
Yes.
Just love it.
My number 3. 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2. It's my second favorite. Make Them Suffer.
Yeah.
Jesus. The instrumental, Infinite Misery, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 nails through the neck.
Not one of those nails is piercing that neck. We know, yeah, it's not going to hit his.
It's 2.
Kill would be my number 5. This was Cannibal Corpse firing on all cylinders on a lot of different levels, and kick-ass song after kick-ass song. Everybody else named the entire album already. So basically, this album confirmed what I thought on the Wretched Spawn, is that there was a little bit more creativity and a little bit more thought process going into these songs, as opposed to just seeing how fast and high-flying and aggressive they can be. So I think Kill's a fantastic record. Number 5.
Moving on to 2009 and February 2nd, the second album produced by Eric Rutan, Evisceration Plague, came out, and I had this at number 7. Don't listen to it as regularly as other albums, but after listening to this for the ranking, it was like climbing on my list after every time I listened to it. And Cauldron of Hate is just a fucking juggernaut of a song, man. I love that song. Of course, the title track of Evisceration Plague is killer. Rutan's mixing is sometimes here and there. This one isn't the best, but it's not the worst that he's done. But it still sounds heavy as shit because it's Cannibal Corpse and they're heavy as shit.
Yeah.
So, but number 7, it like I said, it kept growing.
I had this at number 14. To me, all right, this was pretty much like going from RoboCop 2, hyper-violent, everything's dying horribly, to RoboCop 3, it's PG-13, we changed the main
robot
actor.
ninjas.
Yeah.
It feels like the diet version of Kill. And that's kind of my issue with it. I think the songs are good. Like Cauldron of Hate's awesome. The title track is a live staple. Skewered from ear to eye, beheading and burning is a fuckload of fun. But it kind of comes in terms of like the timeline. It feels a little flat following a absolutely explosive album. It's not a bad album though. I mean, again, I like all of these albums. This one I think just kind of came at the wrong time. Like, this is not the follow-up that you want to Kill. Like, I think that would come a little bit later. But yeah, it's still a good album.
I have to agree with Necrotic as well. This was my number 11. This album was kind of a letdown to me in comparison to the previous two. There's a few great tunes on here, such as Scalding Hail and Skewered from Ear to Eye. Aside those couple songs and maybe one or two more, the album just didn't really move the needle much for me. So yeah, maybe it just suffered from a case of coming out after a really good album, but either way, it just didn't hit the mark for me, so that's kind of why it fell to number 11.
I had it at number 14, along with Nick. This is another one of those albums I think that's just kind of there, because the album before it and the album after it are nuts. And I mean, you know, of course the title track, of course the title track. Carrion Sculpted Entity, Unnatural, Skewed from Ear to Eye. I still think this record is just kind of there. It's another one to fall in line as kind of like filler. It's not that it's bad, it's just not great.
Yeah, and like what it followed was, it's tough.
Yeah,
it's tough.
Yeah, I mean,
like that.
right.
The bar was put pretty high.
They right the ship, though.
Yeah, I had it number 9. Same deal. Good stuff, but not as good as Kill or Wretched Spawn. And pretty much anytime they have a track named the title track, that's a good song.
Yeah, right.
Bad Company, Bad Company, Bad Company.
No, you can't deny.
No,
You don't know, you can't
it's
deny.
true. Cauldron of Hate, To Decompose. Yeah, I mean, some good stuff, but not like Kill or
Yeah.
the
Other thing.
other stuff.
Yeah.
9 and
Then after a relentless touring schedule as usual and release of Global Evisceration Live, a live album they did in 2011, comes Torture on March 12th of 2012, which is my number 13. It fell a little, and I don't, maybe it was because when I was listening to Evisceration Plague, like I listened to it over because, like I said, it kept growing on me, and maybe I didn't give Torture the due diligence I guess it deserved in this. I've listened to it before. Like I said, I bought all these albums the day it came out, but maybe this time around I didn't give it enough of a listen. But 13 is where I'm at. It's not my favorite mix. The Scourge of Iron. That song hits hard as fuck. That song is just crazy good.
That's one of my favorite Cannibal Corpse
Yeah,
one of my
songs.
favorites
Just-
as well.
yeah.
And
Jesus.
that's why I brought it up, because it's not my favorite album, but still, like, one of my favorite songs that are on this album.
It's made of iron.
It's just going to what Cannibal Corpse does for me, anyway. It's just every album is good, but there's got to be a number 13.
Yeah. I had this at number 4. Honestly, this is the sequel to Kill I wanted. The Aggression's back.
Yeah.
I like the mix a little bit better on this than I did on Evisceration Plague. While I like that guitar tone, I thought the kind of drums sounded a little flat. This, they beefed up everything, but it's mixed well. Hyper aggressive tracks again, like kind of that Kill mentality, but you have like a little bit more nuance in there. Scourge of Iron, yeah, we all made the noise. That one. Strangulation Chair. As deep as the knife will go, this album absolutely whoops ass. They brought back the gory elements on the cover, at least. Not so much in the songtells. The songtells started getting a little bit tamer in terms of Cannibal Corpse, but still they're awesome. This album flat out whoops ass. I didn't jam it enough when I initially got it, and I jammed it multiple times during this ranking. It was like, dude, this is so damn good. Yeah, number 4.
I got it number 7. Yeah, better than Evisceration Plague. Again, all the yummy noises during Scourge of Iron. Demented Aggression is good. The bass noodles in Cage Contorted.
Yeah, those are great.
What the hell's happening with his fingers, all 15 of them?
It's like Buckethead on bass.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, but they only is like, okay, you have 2 measures, do the thing. What? Yeah, that.
Well, that's why he's into all that jazz fusion. It's all quick runs.
You want to hear it? Yeah, number 7.
I love this album. This is my number 4. Personal favorite. They seem to take a step back from being overly crazy and from some of the more head-on, sharp, abrupt tempo changes, and I feel like they simplified it ever so slightly and made it slightly more accessible in that manner, and I think that's what really connected a little bit more, because parts were able to grow on you a little bit more as you were able to connect and groove with them. The one song I don't think anyone mentioned is Crucifier Avenged, that I thought was really good, and then Followed Home and Killed is pretty badass. Yeah, this is fantastic. This absolutely, like Necrotic said, probably should have been the follow-up to Kill. It's right up in that vein and just a little different variety of it, and it kicks ass.
I had it at number 6. First of all, no one mentioned it entered the Billboard 200 at 38. Of course, you know, Scourge of Iron, Encased in Concrete.
Yes.
As Deep as the Knife Will Go is another mover and a shaker.
Rabid.
The Strangulation Chair makes me want to smash wedding cakes at a wedding with a hammer. Hammer smashed cake. Caged and Contorted, I mean, dude, come on. This album whoops nuts. And again, I agree that this should have probably been after Kill. It wasn't, but that's okay.
I mean, technically you should torture before you kill, right? But whatever.
Well, yeah, but yeah. So,
Unless you're really sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, really sick. Ugh.
Or you're dyslexic.
That's possible.
And much like their regular scheduled album, 2 years later, Skeletal Domain comes out. And it actually reached the Billboard at number 22, which I do believe still to this date is their highest. Because, let's be honest, at that point, like, who buys records anymore?
Nick.
Me.
Besides Nick.
He fuels the whole economy.
Yeah, right. Nick is responsible for the entire
Palm of my hand.
Let me touch it. Look at it.
Spit in my hand.
Smell the glove.
It was at this time that Eric Raton kind of had a break from the Cannibal Corpse stuff. They went with Mark Lewis at Audio Hammer. And this is my number 9. The mix was a little varied from song to song a little bit, which is okay, but it's nitpicky. Killer Become is one of my favorites on here, or probably my favorite song on here. Vector of Cruelty is a top favorite song of mine too. It's Cannibal Corpse. It's Cannibal Corpse in a nutshell, those songs. Number 9, a middle of the pack kind of thing. It like we've said, it's sometimes you just got to put a number to something, and it was a group of albums that stood out in my mind, and a group that really didn't, and then there's kind of that middle stuff, and this is where that falls into, unfortunately. So number 9 it is.
Number 6 for me. I kind of like the break from Rutan. Like, all right, Rutan had 3 albums in a row there. Little bit different in terms of like the stuff he did, but it was mostly, you could tell like what Eric Rutan's mix is like. It's insanely heavy. This was a little bit more well balanced, a little bit cleaner, but it didn't sound like just washed of any human element. It sounds just like a tight, clean album, and the songs in here are absolutely killer. Ice Pick Lobotomy, High Velocity Impact Splatter is one of my favorite opening Cannibal Corpse songs. Just the chug and him just growling the fucking title is awesome. Hollow Bodies, Headlong into Carnage kind of brings back a little bit of that thrashy feel. This is a good album. I think it's kind of like one that's slightly overlooked, like, like Gallery of Suicide, Gore Obsessed. This one I think stands out more because, it's a little bit more hook driven, but retains the brutality. It's just, kind of a return to like some of the 90s stuff a bit. But, I mean, it's a killer album, and, I mean, I had this ranked higher at one point, but tweaking, it fell a little bit, but this is still a great album, and I think possibly one of the most underrated ones.
I had it at number 9. I remember when I bought this record, I jammed this record a lot when it first came out, and then I put it on the shelf and didn't listen to it for a while, and then when we did this ranking, I picked it up, and I thought, like, yeah, it's good. Of course, the title track, as always. High Velocity Impact Splatter, Sadistic Embodiment, The Murderer's Pact, Bloodstained Cement, especially that drum beat in the breakdown where he doesn't hit the snare drum. It's all the toms on the accent. And that's really really weird.
Yeah.
This kind of just fell a little bit for me. I figured out I liked a lot of the old stuff more, and they progressed beyond this too, so
Yeah.
it was alright.
I am so happy that I have a song left to say that these guys didn't sing. I feel like by the time it comes around to me, between these guys, they name the whole album before it gets around to poor Rin and myself, but it is what it is. Funeral Cremation, nobody said that song. That song whoops ass. It's easily one of the best songs on that album. This album, while it is good to me, being that it is my number 9, it feels like a watered down version of Torture to me. And for that reason, it takes it down a little bit. While I still find it a solid album, I still think Torture was a little bit stronger, and maybe it's almost like Torture A and Torture B, and I don't know.
Sure.
For that reason, it finds its way to number 9.
I have it at number 13 because I've overlooked it. It's one of the albums I've listened to the least of theirs. Title track, obviously. Murder's Pact. But other than that, kind of just, I don't remember, gotta listen to it more. I don't know. They have a lot of albums.
It's just
They
around.
do.
It's there. I'm not gonna go, hey, turn that goddamn piece of shit off. It sucks.
You're probably going to high five and like, Cannibal Corpse, man. Come on and get it up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good job.
And after a long, what seemed like a long 3-year break, was Red Before Black. My number 6, they returned to Mana Studios with Eric Ratana, of course. I got it on vinyl as soon as I saw it. I listened to it a lot, probably because it was one of the first vinyls I had. Some of my favorite songs, again, are on this one, Code of the Slashers, Shedding My Human Skin. The title track is awesome. And it could be, too, I'm just, at this point, when this album comes out, I'm just like super fanboy at this point of Cannibal Corpse and all about, I mean, I have been for a long time, but they just kept consistent. They kept delivering, and you knew what you were getting, and it was good. Every time you got it, it was good. And some of them were great, and some of them were legendary. And this is one of those, for me, that were great.
In the words of one of my favorite comedians and writers, the late great Paul Mooney, you must be on crack, because that is not the same album that I heard. It is my number 14, Red Before Black. It has all of your staples for Cannibal Corpse. It checks all the boxes, but once again, in the grand scheme of things, having heard this album or this version of various versions of similar albums over and over again, this one finds itself just not impressing me as much. Most of their other material is just a lot stronger, while the production's better and, technical playing might be better than some of the earlier stuff. It just doesn't resonate with me, and that's why it finds itself at number 14.
I have it number 15, only because I probably have listened to this album 10 times. Maybe. I don't know why. I just never remembered this album. Probably because of the title, Red Before Black.
Yeah.
Where's the dripping goo?
That makes sense, though.
Yeah.
You see red with blood before you go black and die.
Well, yeah, but
I got that.
it's not.
I saw
It's
that.
not.
I mean, well, dude, like,
It's not as in your face.
Evisceration
It's an
Plague.
innuendo. It's not
Gallery of Suicide. It's like, it's got some colors in the title. I don't know.
It's not as in your face. And even this album isn't, like you were saying, I get it. It's not as in your face.
I mean, it's kind of like the standard in your face. Like, I mean, Larry, this is the level we're used to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They executed their sound.
Yeah. And Code of the Slashers, Scavenger Consuming Death. There's some good stuff on here, but for some reason I just listened to this the least amount. I don't know why.
I have this number 10. It's a little bit lower. Kind of the same thing we're talking about. Like, at this point, Cannibal Corpse is just fiercely consistent. I mean, they've been fiercely consistent before this point. But at this point, it's like, all right, this is really starting to sink in. Not the most creative title, but there are some really good songs there. Code of the Slashers, Corpus Delicti, Firestorm, Vengeance, bangers.
Brutal.
But it's kind of like, the same bangers. Like, okay, this could have been on Torture. This could have been on Evisceration Plague and Kill.
Yep.
They're good, but, nothing quite jumped off the page as much, but it still, checked all the boxes, maintained a level of intensity that you expected from them, so 10 it is.
I also had this at number 10, pretty much for the same reason. Again, this just kind of is another record that falls in the pack as being there. Still a good record, still killer songs. Firestorm Vengeance is brutal as all get out. Of course, the title track, Code of the Slashers. I mean, it's good, but I mean, it's there. Consistent release from a consistent band. Of course it's good, it's Cannibal Corpse. But I mean, does it stand out as being some monumental record like others have been? No.
We did get to see them here in Toledo when they were touring on this
that
album.
record.
So
It was awesome.
It was awesome.
Yep.
Much like any time you will see Cannibal Corpse.
Yep.
Yeah,
It was
great.
really good.
It was badass,
Yep.
yeah.
Now I do think that this is Eric Rutan's one of his better produced albums, like, period.
I like the mix on Torture and Kill better, but it's still good.
Yeah.
And a year later, December 10th, 2018, Pat O'Brien entered the home of a neighbor.
Allegedly.
No.
This was not allegedly.
Dude, this was like a week and a half after we saw them.
Yeah,
Yep.
we just saw the
Pat
show.
O'Brien brushed past me as he was walking to the stage, and I was like, oh! And then this.
Yep. Entered the home of a couple neighborly folks, ended up shoving one of the owners down and then seeking shelter, I guess, in their backyard. And it wasn't until an officer tased him because he lunged at the officer with a knife that
Bath
ended.
salts are wild, man.
And,
They really are.
This is allegedly.
and meanwhile, at the O'Brien house, it's on fucking fire!
With loads of ammunition.
And military grade flamethrowers.
Weapons,
Because he's a
right.
collector. I'm a collector. I understand.
Yep. Yeah.
right?
I swear to God, I'd have a flamethrower if I could. I was contemplating getting one of those Elon Musk flamethrowers.
I'm so glad you
I mean,
did.
they are really cool.
A man
Like,
lives long, you get stuff.
And after the fire subsided, they found a big arsenal of stuff and 3 human skulls. And although it is legal in Florida to possess firearms without permits, it is not legal to own sawed-off shotguns. One of the factors of getting him convicted, there was no correlation officially about the fire and him tying those two together. But they did get him on the weapons and stuff. But, you know, he was since released March 16th with 5 years probation and time served. But the band again was faced with, okay, we have shit to do and no guitarists. So,
And where do we get another flamethrower?
Yeah, because Pat took all 3 of them.
He had
took all 3.
We were gonna cook.
Man,
From a distance.
From a
Long distance barbecuing. It's a sport.
I'm gonna go around the block, put the hot dogs on. I'm gonna go around the block, just trust me.
your meringue ain't getting toasted tonight, bro.
These things taste like gasoline.
But the band contacted their old friend Eric Rutan about filling in for some tour dates that they had, and he wasn't doing anything. And fast forward 2 years later, he officially joined the band.
Which is so cool.
Which is super cool.
Super cool.
Super key.
And after the longest gap between albums in the band's history, 4 years later, Violence Unimagined was released April 16th, 2021. This is my number 3. And going back to my rating, I should have gave it a 5. If I had to redo one, I would probably do a 5 on this. I listened to this album all the damn time. When I'm mowing the lawn, that's the album I'm listening to. It's that and Meshuggah. So
Yeah, when you first got the vinyl, dude, we jammed that vinyl like probably 10 times.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and the you know, you guys saw the Japanese pressing that I unboxed there with that and the bleeding. That sounds killer, and that's now in my rotation on the vinyl regularly. Keeping my other original copy just a little mint. I'm not all about that totally, but you know, as you guys saw with my segments, I keep my shit tight and together. I love this album. Everything about it speaks to me in Cannibal Corpse. It grooves, it's heavy, it's corpse grinders just on fire. Killer album, start to finish.
Yep.
I had a number 5. I kind of knew it cracked the top 5. It pretty much does the thing that I like about the Bleeding in terms of the songs are different. There's more dynamics in it. Except this is the Corpse Grinder era, so you get kind of added intensity. And Rutan makes his presence felt, and he and Barrett they were locked in a room, I guess, and like, no, it's just us, let's go back and forth riffs.
Yeah, dude, those riffs are nasty.
They're catchy and brutal as hell. Dude, I mean, Inhumane Harvest. What a giant hook, dude. I find myself just screaming, everything must go. It's such a great riff. Ritual Annihilation, Follow the Blood, beer, beer, beer. Like, there's so many catchy elements to this album, and I think this is kind of the start of like a whole new thing for Cannibal Corpse. This is like the lineup they want to go off into the sunset in. Yes, don't go off to the sunset soon. I still need more albums, but yeah, this is the great start to a whole new era of Cannibal Corpse, and Jesus, this is just awesome. So yeah, number 5.
I have it at number 6. This is an odd album because it's new. How is it so damn good?
Yeah.
It's only 6 because it is new, so it'll probably be higher later,
Could be.
perhaps. But I have already listened to this album in the 4 months it's been out more than I listened to Skeletal Domain and Red Before Black combined. Inhumane Harvest, Murderous Rampage, Surround, Kill, Devour, the whole
record,
dude. Damn album. Yes, the Teeth Lady.
Oh yeah.
Teeth Lady thing.
Melina.
She's such a smiley
Just-
gal. You should smile more.
It
Oh
is-
God, no.
Fantabulous record. Their next one, hopefully, is just like this one.
But maybe better.
Maybe
Who knows?
better. Who knows?
I don't know.
I entertain that.
They just met
possibility.
this Rootin guy.
It's
So we'll see what he does with them.
kind of new to the whole metal thing, right?
She was a folk guitarist before.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Rootin' and a tootin'.
Yeah, she went from banjo to a 6-string.
Eric and the Morbid Angels or something like that?
Yeah, dude, that's what it
okay.
is.
Okay. Love Eternal.
Oh, yeah, no, I forgot about that one too.
Yeah.
That's my
Like
favorite.
Air Supply.
Makes me moist. I have this at number 5 as well. I'd be a fool not to put this in the top 5 albums for Cannibal Corpse. I've listened to this album, I don't know, probably 70, 80, 90, 100 times maybe, and it gets better every time.
It's only 4 months old.
And like, you know, I knew it was going to be good, but they brought it. Great work. I'm not even going to name songs because I don't have to. The whole record kicks ass. I mean, I guess if you really want to know, watch our review on it. I think I gave it like a 4.5.
He was here at this table.
Probably should have given it 5. Whoop ass.
It was a
record.
table much like this one. In fact, it was this one.
I just like how the old schoolers show the kids how it's done, man. Because very few records can touch this.
Yeah.
I was damn near close to putting this number 1. I can't tell you how many times I teased putting this number 1. It is my number 2. It is my favorite Corpse Grinder album. I think the addition of Eric Rutan is something that cannot be understated. While Cannibal Corpse has had excellent, fantastic riff-writing guitar players throughout the years, they have not had a guitar player, in my eyes, as talented as him. And if you combine that with the fact that he is fresh blood with a fresh perspective into what they've already perfected with Cannibal Corpse, it gives you this fucking masterpiece, which is Violence Unimagined. And I have to think, with him permanently in the fold now, it's just going to continue to get better. The leads on this album are some of the best leads you'll ever hear on a Cannibal Corpse album. The riffs, the groove, everything about it just feels fresh. It's like they took the best parts of what they've always done and they allowed somebody else to come in and add a little bit of different influence to give it some variety, and that variety gave it a whole new life.
Yep, I think he pushed Barrett too. Barrett owns on this album. They're back and forth. So you get like a cool dynamic of 2 different guitarists kind of like gelling, feeding off of each other.
And I think it helps too that, you know, Eric Rutan produced a lot of these albums
he knows
too.
their
So
music.
he knows their music. He knows what they're about. He knows what they're looking for.
Been friends
you
for
know,
years.
Yeah, they've been
toured
friends.
with them.
Right, exactly. They hang out. They tour together. Like, he knows what this band is all about. So to bring then him in as a fresh perspective, already knowing what they're about, like, he just brought it.
Whole album rips, and they will continue to rip, as I'm sure. And 2021, so maybe 2023, given their
Maybe.
track word.
I mean, they're taking their long breaks, but
Yeah.
I think they're going to get back to business.
Especially after COVID, having so much downtime.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
See, I could foresee maybe just a 2-year gap like they usually do, but I mean, if it's going to be 3 years, given their track record.
Yeah, I mean,
why
well,
would they change after all this time?
They're going to be on every festival they can be on. They're going to probably do at least maybe 2 rounds of touring on this, I would imagine.
Yeah.
That seems like standard practice for Cannibal Corpse because they have earned their reputation on the road. And I mean, if you've never seen Cannibal Corpse,
One of the
go
Right,
Yeah.
dude.
one of the best live shows you'll see.
You know, this is
It's up there.
Yeah, this is the reason I got into death metal. It's this fucking band from Buffalo and then Tampa. They pretty much, you know, nailed the sound, and they made me a fan of all this stuff. Like, this is why I gravitate to intense music.
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
Cannibal Corpse.
Yep, me too. It was Morbid Angel was kind of that stepping stone, and then Morbid Angel made me like death metal. Cannibal Corpse made me love it.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at. And then you know, find about band Suffocation, Obituary, Deicide, all these Dying Fetus, and you know, it's Morbid Angel and Cannibal Corpse set that path for me, and I am eternally grateful for that.
Yeah.
All right, so that wraps this ranking up. What did you think? Where do you rank it? Let us know in the comments.
It sucked.
Yeah. I mean, tell us that too. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications, all that good jazz. Shirts, send an email, thrallsofmetal@gmail.com. Patreon link will be in the description below. We also have a giveaway going on for 7,500 subscribers, so go to that video, comment, and get entered to win that.
We did just hit 6,666 subscribers.
That was a big moment for us metalheads.
Yep.
All that Satan plus 1 more 6.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, and
Yeah.
till next time.